Hi.
Hi.
All right. Hi. So welcome to the Tucson Zine Fest 2021 zine making panel. Um, we're going to take our audience through the process that you all go about making your zines and making your art and what that is like for you specifically. And of course, just as a few ground rules, that is going to be recorded for posting later to YouTube as well. Oh, and introducing myself, I'm Elisa Mask. I am one of the co-organizers of the Tucson Zine Fest, so I'm facilitating all the panels and just making sure we keep on time and all of those things. If you're not currently speaking, I would ask that you mute yourself when someone else is, because that helps with like background noise and those things for the recording. Okay, so I will go ahead and let you guys take it from here. If you need to share your screen and show your process through your computer, you're totally welcome to. You should be able to. Let's go ahead and start with Katherine, if you don't mind.
Hi there, my name is Katherine Leung, and I curate Canto Cutie Zine. It is both a digital and physical zine. You can buy digital copies you can buy physical copies for $25 on the site, and the digital copies are free. And I'll just talk about my experience working with digital programs to make zines. So I guess when I first started making zines, I'd make them with paper and Xerox machines. I think a lot of people start off that way. But I really wanted a more polished look, and I wanted my zine to really like honor the colors and artwork that people would submit to the zine, which is why I wanted to go digital and like make it look more, I guess, not professional, but in a way that really accurately showed people's artwork so that, they'd be more satisfied with the way it was displayed. And so I want to talk about two programs. One program I have found is called Swift Publisher. It is created by Belight software, and it's only for Macs. I found this program after working a lot with InDesign and Scribus, and I just thought that it was the most user-friendly, and it was the cheapest too. Swift Publisher, I think, is only $20, and if you have any kind of student ID, I think you can get it for $13. So really affordable, in my opinion. I created the latest copies with Canto Cutie, and everything can be made to export as a PDF or any kind of like however you want your final product, whether it's for print or to post on some kind of website like Issuu.com. It works really well for me. Another site that I have used is Canva to make themes. I created 3 issues of Asian American art zine with a few of my friends. Canva is online only. It's a web-based like graphic design program. I know that a lot of people who do like social media kind of making graphics, they're familiar with Canva, and Canva is getting more popular with like small publishing and making posters and stuff like that. So I would say you don't have as much control on Canva that you do on the other program I told you about, Swift Publisher. But overall, I'm happy with how they've come out. And the company I use to print all my zines is called mixam.com, mixam.com. I found it on Reddit, r/zines, and I saw that a lot of people who do photography and art zines, they have used this website. It prints really inexpensively. I think it's based in the UK, but I see that the zines, they get shipped to me from like Indiana, I think. So it's still like US based. And even though I sell my zines at Zine Fest and like bookstores, I always have a free copy available digitally on my site. So I've used Issuu for that, but a website that I actually think is better, it's I think it's Switzerland based, yumpu.com, YUMPU.com. It looks like Issuu, but it seems like, and yeah, there's still ads, which kind of sucks, but you can put larger files on it, and it seems to be more adapted to whatever device you're using. So when I look at Yumpu, like on my phone or tablet, it's like adapted to it. So I find that a little better. And I think Issuu, you are limited to only like 2 uploads and like less than 100 megabytes. But I think with Yumpu, I think the limit is higher, and I think you're allowed a few more uploads. But I've created like a million accounts on those sites, so I'm sure you can find it too. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I love making zines about anything, and I'm happy to. I don't think there should be secrets in zine making. I told you all the websites I used, and I'm happy to answer any questions and share any of my experience. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, we will have the opportunity for live questions at the end. So like in other panels, I've had people just put them in the chat. So you're absolutely welcome to use the chat at any time for that too. We'll just do that part at the very, very end. And Katherine has been in a panel before and introduced. So let's go ahead and have Evan, if you wouldn't mind adding an introduction at the beginning of your spiel, you can go ahead.
Sure, thank you. My name's Evan. I go by he, him. I'm a photographer, sort of firstly, but I've always thought that zines and books are sort of the best mode of delivery for photography, even above like prints on the wall or a print hung in a room. So today, on like the topic of zine making and sort of piggybacking off of Katherine's ideas, I was going to do a quick walkthrough of how I make zines in Google Slides, because I am also sort of used to InDesign and that workflow, but I wanted to see how easy it was to make a zine with like the most basic software, and I don't think software gets more basic than Google Slides. And it's also super accessible. At like everyone with a Gmail account has access to Google Slides. Everything's shared on saved on the cloud, and so you don't have to worry about storage or working on a specific computer. It's really easy to sort of just work on stuff wherever you are. So I'm gonna share my screen and just really quickly run through how I go about making a zine in Google Slides. So I have Google Slides open here. And if we just open a blank slide project, if it'll load, there we go. So the first thing, and sort of the most important thing, is to go into File, Page Setup, and we're gonna change the aspect ratio of our page to something that is more friendly to a book. So just like a regular piece of copy paper is 8.5 by 11. And the way I use Google Slides, I make each page individually. So I'm going to make each page 5.5 by 8.5 to be half of a regular copy page. So we get apply, and then we have our pages. I usually get rid of sort of the default designs that they give you, and I just add a whole bunch of pages so I have some to work with. And we can make an 8-page zine, easy to like 2 pieces of 8.5 by 11 paper folded in half. And then it's really easy to just sort of go in and add an image, and I upload an image from my computer. I have some images that I've been working on for a project recently. And the thing to note about Google Slides, and especially for photography and art, is that it's going to do some real funky stuff to resize your image to make it fit into the presentation. So it's always best to resize everything in Photoshop or a similar program to what it will be when it's printed out, just so that quality stays intact, because Google is not good at resizing images. So I have that there, and just for sort of demonstration's sake, I'll close this out and I'll show you how to change the sizes in Google Slides. So we can go to size and rotation, and I'll make it 3 inches. Lock aspect ratio, oh, 3 inches. And this is sort of like the default. This is like most Google Drive programs. You'll have your individual format options on the right side once you select format options up here. And I've also found that the best way to bring formatting from page to page, because Google Slides isn't really made for books, and I'm sort of like working around some things, is to just copy, like Command C that, and then bring it in here and paste. And then, so this is, say, if you're making a zine with a bunch of pages that have similarly sized photos, I can come here and go replace image. And if I just choose a different image, it'll keep that formatting. So I don't have to go in and reformat every picture that I add to the book. I can sort of just keep copying, pasting that original image and replacing it, and it'll keep whatever formatting I applied to it originally. So it's sort of a faster way of laying out a book with similar layouts on every page. And then text is also, I mean, the text in Google Slides isn't the best. Just like you won't have as many options as in something like Canva or InDesign. But there are sort of enough to be able to make something that looks good. And once again, that's just format options up here. And then we can also right click and get our rotate options, and then center on page and stuff like that. And like I said, this Google Slides for me has worked better for images and art than for text, just because it's not made for big chunks of text. And then if we're moving on, the other sort of harder part of working with Google Slides to make a zine is exporting things, just because that can get a little funky as well. The best way I have found to do it is to go to download, and then to download a PDF of the book. That sort of keeps everything at the highest quality and keeps the formatting pretty much intact. It can get funky, so I found it best to go back and double check that the formatting stayed the same after you downloaded it. And a cool trick that I've also learned is, so I work on a Mac, and it's sort of hard sometimes to reformat a PDF to print as a booklet if I'm going to saddle stitch or saddle staple the zine myself. So there is a plugin that I've found, and I have opened it recently, but I can put the link in the chat after I'm done speaking. But it's basically a plugin that works in the print dialog of Preview, the Mac sort of image viewer, and it automatically reshuffles all of your pages to print as a booklet if you just send them to your normal like copy printer. And so that's been really helpful, because I can lay out the zine in the normal order in Google Slides, and then don't have to worry about reshuffling anything myself. I don't have to do any of that hard math. And so that's been awesome. And like I said, I'll put that link in the comments. And so I thought I'd show an example of a zine I've like fully made in Google Slides. This is a zine about my roommate's house plant. And so I photographed every leaf of the house plant. And this is where that like copy paste to keep the formatting really came in handy, because for all of like the 100-some pictures, I just had to drag and drop a new picture and didn't have to reformat everyone. And another cool thing to do is to go to view and then grid view. And this sort of lets you see your spreads as that you would see them in the book. So just getting sort of a more holistic view of your zine instead of just page by page, which can be helpful for looking at the flow or looking at sequencing. So yeah, I think that's about it. That's about all I wanted to say. Just sort of like a quick run through on some of the most bare bones way to make a zine if you're working on any number of restrictions. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, that's really interesting because someone leading up to this fest was like, oh, I'm a photographer. How do I make a zine? I've never made one before. So like that's a very accessible, easy to learn way to just get that zine made. It's pretty awesome. So, and then Kayla, I would ask you to also include an introduction at the beginning of your spiel as well. And then after that, we will be opening for questions. So if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask any of the panelists at all, you can put those in the chat to the right of the screen. So go ahead, Kayla.
Okay. My name is Kayla Shaggy. I am a indigenous zinester and a comic book maker. I'm originally from New Mexico, but I moved to Arizona recently, and I got into zine making when I submitted one as a sort of like grant proposal for an art gallery in Durango. I went to school there, and then I ended up winning, and they were like, okay, here's $500, make a zine. And then what I ended up making was Monstrous Zine, Volume 1. So this one, I actually went to kind of like an online printer to make. And what I had done was I kind of just made each of the images that are in the book, scanned them at a really high quality. I would suggest 300 DPI. And then I used a program called Bookwrite. They're associated with a website called Blurb, who kind of offer Bookwrite as like a free program where you can make your own books. The only thing they charge you is that if you want to make a physical copy, this would count as a luxury magazine with matte printing. And then on the other side of like the more kind of like independent zine making scene is whenever I make like the kind of like independent based comics. So this is one of them. Basically what I do is I take a legal size paper and then I fold it in half and then I place images on each four. And then after that, I go through each page and do duplex printing, print them all out, and then I staple it. And then it kind of turns into a smaller version like this. So a lot of it is like just keeping track of what pages are going and making sure that it just reads accordingly. But yeah, that's what I do. I kind of sped through it, but it's okay.
Cool. Yeah, I love the variety of zine making processes that we've been talking about. It's really cool to see how everyone does things a little bit differently. That's very awesome. And then I'll let you guys type in questions if you have any questions for the people attending, but also specifically Tucson-centered resources for like printing. I would really recommend Action Imaging in town. They're a local Tucson printer. They print more things that I would say are not like glossy zines. They're kind of like the photocopy style zines. I wouldn't really go to them for something I'd want super high quality, not saying they're bad, but it's just not the same as, you know, very high quality printed something online. For high quality printing in town, I would recommend Tanline Printing. They're also a local printer. We got our shirts printed there this year, but they do print other things like zines. So then, yes, I see, Katherine, your question in the chat about, Evan, do you print your zines at home?
I do when I can, when sort of the zine allows for it. I'm a huge fan of big bulky laser printers, um because you can find them for pretty cheap on like Facebook Marketplace or at yard sales. And toner lasts forever, and they're a little easier to work on than inkjet printers, um, and a little easier to deal with um, on the printing side of things. Um, and so yeah, when a zine is like small enough and easy enough to lay out myself, I like to print it at home. But I have used Blurb before, um, just because like with the Pothos book, with the book about the plant, that was just so many pages, that I didn't want to have to worry about that myself, so I ordered it from Blurb. Um, but other than yeah, like laser printer all the way. I think that's such a like fun and interesting sort of forgotten technology that's still kicking right now.
Cool, awesome. And then Kayla, I saw you mention another printer source in the chat if you wanted to speak more to that.
Oh, yeah. So in my excitement, I forgot to mention that I do use Blurb for kind of like the preliminary copy. But the thing I like about Blurb is that you can create these PDFs and you can download it and then it's yours forever. And then I think they made like Kindle friendly stuff, but I'm more of into like the independent selling. Once I get that like printer friendly PDF for when it's like a book form, that's when I go to a different printer. And this is where I order kind of like more of the mass copies from. They're called Tribal Print Source. And I met them at a indigenous comic convention. And, they saw my stuff and they're like, we could do this. How much are you paying these guys? And I've been using them for 3 years now. And, they're indigenous owned, they're in California. And if you're indigenous artist or a zine maker, they give you a discount if you tell them what tribe you're from.
That is really cool. I've never heard of that print source, I don't think. So that's really awesome to highlight that as well. And then another thing to mention while we're waiting for more questions, if you guys have any, you can put those in the chat. But another great resource for people just starting out making zines, like we have a lot of people in Tucson who are very young, they've never made zines before, they don't know a lot about it. If you go to Wasted Ink Zine Distro, they have a resources section, which I recommend to like every person I meet that wants to know how to make a zine. Because they basically take you through the process almost step by step, and different kinds of experimentation with making zines that you can do. So it's really important to just try a bunch of different styles and see which one works for you the best as an artist, as a zinester, if you're interested in making those things. Yeah. So I'm looking through the chat. I don't see many other questions, but the links of the sites that we've mentioned, I will include those in the YouTube recording in the description so that we have those references as well. There's also a few things to mention with our Zine Fest this year. We have printed an omnibus of a bunch of different creators in the fest. Actually, I have one right next to me. Let me just grab it really quick. So this omnibus was actually printed at Action Imaging that I just talked about. And it's a very basic kind of zine where you have a color paper cover and then the inside is black and white. We have a lot of different contributions from exhibitors this year. So this is available on the TucsonZineFest.com website. And then after printing costs, the benefits, the proceeds go to benefit certain groups. We have the Navajo and Hopi COVID-19 Relief Fund, as well as the Allied Media Projects Fund. So if we sell those copies, everything gets donated to those groups, which is super awesome. As well as I mentioned, Tanline printing our shirts this year. So they're a local printer. So we're trying to keep, things locally within Arizona or the Southwest and kind of boost those local industries as well. So you can get shirts on the website, you can get omnibus, we have consignment from some of our exhibitors. And yeah, that's pretty much my spiel, I guess, for Tucson Zine Fest. Do you guys have anything maybe you didn't mention that you want to kind of throw in there, something you want to add on? No? Okay, no worries. I was just gonna say thank everyone for, attending. Thank you all for your time attending. Thank you panelists for your contributions, for all this information. It's super awesome, and I love to see like how many different ways there are to make a zine. I think that's really cool. Yeah, so I think if we're pretty much encapsulated everything we want to talk about with this panel, I think I will go ahead and let the recording end here, and it will be available on YouTube later, and I will get ready for the next panel. So thanks, guys. It was great seeing everybody.
Thank you.